Hi everybody, now we are going to learn the lesson on classes and objects. Now let's look at what classes are. Classes are a way to bind the data describing an entity and its associated functions together. Now when we say this, we are talking about a class inside which you put some of the functions of the class, like what the class is, what the class is supposed to do. So supposing I have a class called student, so I put all the characteristics of a student inside that particular class, like the student has a roll number, the student has an admission number, the student has some marks, the student is in a particular class. So these are all the characteristics of a student, right? Okay, so classes are basically user defined data types in C++. So we can give any name to a class, and in order to use this class we have to create objects of this class, then only the class can be used. So we cannot use the class directly, we have to make objects of the class to use that particular class. Now I'll show you how to write a class. Here let's write a class called student. So here I write the student class. The class is the keyword, so we write class student. Student is the user defined name that we have given. I write int roll number of the student, then if you want you can put int admission number of the student, right? Then I take char name and I give the length as 15 here, and then finally I say, okay, let's put it like this, char class and here we say 10, and then say int marks, right? Then we have two functions here, one is void accept for accepting the details, and one function here which is void display. So this is the class which we have made. This is the student class, and inside this student class I have this roll number, admission number, name, class and marks. They are all called data members, and here this accept and display, they are called the member functions. So a class can have data members as well as member functions, right? So this way you can have any class. A class can be customer, class employee, right? Class supplier, class salesman. You can make any class and you can put the details of these inside the class, right? Now let's look at the access specifiers of a class. Access specifiers, what we are going to learn here is public and private. Now the variables, that is the data members and functions, right, can either be made as public or they can be made as private. Fine. If they are made as public, that means they are accessed from outside the class also, and private means they can be accessed only within the class. So outside the class I cannot access the private members of a class. Private means the class is keeping them private and the class doesn't want to give those members outside the class. So if I want to access the members of a class outside that particular class, I'll have to define it as public, right? And one thing that you have to remember here is, by default all the members of a class are private. So if I don't put any specifiers, then by default all of them will be private. If I want to specify that a particular member function is going to be public, I'll have to say public and then a colon, and then I can write something like this, int marks. So in this case, this int marks becomes a public data member. So that means this int marks can be accessed outside the class. But supposing I write something like this, private, and then I write int roll number, and I write int name. So here, sorry, char name 10. So in this case, since I have written private there, it becomes private. So even if you don't write private, that is automatically private. So private means it won't be available outside the class. So in this case, roll number and name will not be available outside the class, whereas this marks will be available outside the class, right? So as far as we are concerned, we will be learning only public and private access specifiers now. There is one more access specifier called protected, which we will be learning when we do the chapter on inheritance, right? Now here you have made the class, fine, this is class student. Here we have made all the data members of a class. In this case, I'll just put one more thing here. I'll make the classes as the functions as public. The variables, that is roll number, admission number, name and all, they are all private, but the methods, that is the functions, they have been made as public. Okay, so now we come to this, how to make objects of a class. For making objects of a class, this is the name of the class, so I say student S1. So S1 is an object of the class, right? Now I said that the class members can be accessed only through a object. So if I have to reference a member of the class, it will be S1 dot accept, like this, right? S1 dot display. We can access only the public members through the object, so we should remember this. We can access only the public members through an object. So supposing I try to write something like this, S1 dot roll number is equal to 10, this is wrong, this is invalid, because roll number is private and it can't be accessed with the object. Okay, now so S1 is an object of a class, and through S1 I am calling the accept and display methods, which are public methods of the class. So generally what we do is we keep all the variables, that is data members, as private, and the methods or the functions, we keep them as public inside a class, right? Okay, now let's look at one small example which has a complete example. In fact, this is class employee. I have taken class employee, in which we have taken char name, char department, and we have taken int EMP number and float salary. So these are the data members here, and I have got two functions. The first function I have written here, enter details, in which I am accepting the details of the employee, C in name here, C in department, C in emp number, right, then C in salary, right? Now same way we'll be writing the display details method. So here you will have void display details, in which you will have only the cout statements, cout emp number endl, and then I write cout name endl, cout department endl, and cout salary, right? Now this is the display details method. After this display details method, I'm going to close the class. Now we are going to make the main method. So I'll make it over here, the main method. I write void main. Now inside the main method, we make an object of the class. So here I write employee obj1. The class, the object name I have given as obj1. Now after this, I write obj1 dot accept details. This is calling the accept details method, and then I write obj1 dot display details, right? So basically what happens here is, when I call the accept details method here, this goes to the I have written it as enter details, so it should be enter details over here, not accept details. So I'll change it, just a minute. Yeah, here it should be obj1 dot enter details, right? So when I write this enter details, this enter details is a method of the class here. So when I say obj1 dot enter details, the control comes to this enter details, and this method is executed. This enter details method is executed. So enter the name of the employee, name, enter the department of the employee, all these things happens here. So the data for the employee is accepted, and after that the control returns back to this main method. In the main method we have written obj1 dot display details. So this takes me to this place. The control is transferred to this display details method here, from here, right? So display details method, the details of the employee are displayed, right? And finally we come to the end of the class over here, right? So we have accepted the details of the employees, and we have also displayed the details of the employees. Now I'll try to show you something over here. Supposing I say something like this, obj1 dot marks is equal to 20, and I write obj1 dot roll number is equal to 132, something like this. Now these two are invalid. This is also invalid because in our class we have defined, this is the class over here, we have defined, I have put marks and roll number. In the class I have the employee class actually here. So instead of this marks and roll number, I would like to put it as something like this, obj1 dot emp number is equal to 132, and obj1 dot salary is equal to 10,000. So these two entries, they will be invalid. Why? Because they are public members of, they are private members of the class, right? So private members cannot be accessed through the object, that you have to remember, right? Because they are private to the class, whereas obj1 dot enter details and obj1 dot display details are fine, they will be executed. So this is one whole example of the classes and objects in which we have made a class, and we have made an object of the class and used the functions of a class through the object, right? So this is what I wanted to show you here. So with this I come to the end of this example on classes and objects, and I think we have done the basics of classes and objects over here. So with this I think I'll end this topic on classes and objects. Hope you have understood this. Thank you.